Please hold the line. We will answer your call as soon as possible.
I read this quote by you from last year in Bloomberg. You went to Yale for undergrad, and that you initially thought your degree was like a Harry Potter spell that could magically open any door for you. Was there a point when you realized that wasn't true, and that you know, the stuff they don't teach in college, the street smarts, the hustle, the grit that it takes, was there a specific moment when you realized it wasn't like a magic spell, or has it been a magic spell?
Oh God, no. I mean, I use that story all the time because in some ways that oh shit moment that I had after Yale was like it's pretty traumatic actually. You know, I grew up in Oregon, and I grew up on a farm until I was like 7, and I grew up in sort of this remote suburb of Portland. And the reality was, you know, going to Yale, I thought I had made it. I thought I was done. I was entering the East Coast establishment. You know, there were all these like old buildings and fancy people.
What
you
do
know,
you want to be in the establishment for? Screw the
What?
establishment.
Exactly. And so, but I also was, I was a little bit, I wanted to be off the beaten path. And so when I was graduating from Yale, I didn't go do the investment banking or consulting. I thought that was for like, you know, dweebs and tools and all that. And so I was like, screw that. I'm going to LA. I'm going to get in the music business. And they're going to super love the fact that I'm like, you know, an Ivy League grad who also wants to be, you know, creative and all that stuff. I mean, super naive.
So you felt your degree made you at that point like you were just the man because of the degree.
Unstoppable. Like I got it all, you know. It was hilarious, right? And so I get to LA, which is probably one of the scariest places to go through an epiphany that you don't have the proper tools to navigate the world, right? And quickly realized that it didn't mean anything, right? In LA, it really doesn't mean that much, right? Especially in showbiz, and especially in a dying industry like music, it was really bad. But the other thing was that I think I just didn't understand what I didn't know what I didn't know at that point. And as I started to learn more, I realized I didn't have any practical skills, right? I didn't really have a good, healthy model of how the working world worked. And, you know, because I had grown up, you know, in Oregon and, you know, and all that stuff, I didn't have like a family network I could rely on to help me sort of get through those first stages. And so I felt really lost and lonely. Like it was scary, right? I remember like driving around like in LA, listening to Radiohead, just kind of feeling like the whole world was this desolate wasteland and that I was never going to amount to anything.
I do think LA, I say this all the time, you know, as you know, I'm born and raised in LA, and I have, I think, an unusual perspective. And it's a weird city because if I tell people I'm from LA, they usually say to me, "You're really from here?" And it's like, no one's from here. Everyone just comes here.
It's true.
But I do think it's one of the hardest cities in the world, even as a tourist, to come and just kind of figure out. I can't imagine as a puffed up Yale undergrad coming and expecting that to carry you. It must have been scary.
Oh, it was a mess. It was a mess. And so, you know, then I went through this terrible journey, right? I literally moved home with my parents, you know, to like reset. I like grew a beard. I moved all my old furniture out of my childhood bedroom, grew a beard, and sort of was like, lived like a monk. And I started to flail around, right? I did these, I took the LSAT, right? I was like going to apply to law school was like my big plan for.
Wait a minute. So when your degree didn't get you where you wanted, you thought more degrees would get you where you want?
That's what you're taught, right? At that point, you're like, oh, I just must need more of the same. You know, it's like any addiction, right? You think the answer to the problems that have been caused by that addiction is more of the same, you know, addiction. So. And, you know, and I'm lucky. I count one of the luckiest things in my life is that I ended up figuring out that I shouldn't go to law school. We sometimes joke around GA that like our slogan underneath, you know, GA should be saving people from law school since 2010.